This episode was brought to you by Resilient Nutrition. Pals, greetings, and welcome to another episode of Everything Endurance. It is, as always, delightful to have you with us today. Delightful to have you with us wherever you are in the world. I was having a look at the analytics that we get sent through from our podcast hosting service, and it turns out we've picked up our first subscriber in Chile. So greetings to Chile, hola. Buenos dias and all that jazz. And also our first downloader in Kyrgyzstan, which was a bit of an unexpected curveball. I did look up how to say hello in Kyrgyz. Unfortunately, I could find the letters, but nothing that would show me the pronunciation. I really didn't want to mess that one up and offend anybody, so just hello to Kyrgyzstan. May you stick with us. Thank you for listening. If you are out there listening to this, then please, whatever service you're using to listen to it, wherever it is you are in the world, give us a like, give us a subscribe, maybe even review an episode for us. That would be absolutely fantastic. It just helps spread the word, and we can start picking up listeners in more wonderful places around the world, which is just really exciting. I love that sort of stuff. A bit of business first. Over at Beyond the Ultimate Towers, we have this week announced the guest speakers and workshop leaders for the Highland Ultra this October. If you haven't heard us banging on about it, which I'm absolutely sure you have by now, because we're excited about this one. We're going to be adventuring in the UK for the first time, a 3-day 125 kilometre race on the Knoydart Peninsula, like the most remote and wild and wonderful area of the UK. It's where they should have shot Lord of the Rings. We're going to be in there amongst all that wonderful mountains and wildlife and everything else running this October. And also in the evenings, we're going to be having the likes of Mimi Anderson, Gary House, Christina Madsen, Sonny Pertz, Brett Rockos. There's going to be tons of people there leading talks and workshops in the evening. So you can come away from the thing with advice that's going to help you be a better, stronger, faster runner, that's going to inspire you to want to take on adventures yourself. Just some really, really wonderful people who you're really going to enjoy meeting. So if you want to return to adventure, get a race in your diary. This October, 21st to the 23rd, we're going to be in Scotland. Head to the website now, beyondtheultimate.co.uk, and look for the Highland Ultra, okay? Do that. You'll have a great time, I promise you. Okay, that's business dealt with. Let's talk about today's guest. I'm very excited about this. By a complete fluke of scheduling, this absolutely wasn't by design. This week we have another guest who is somebody who was hit with some very bad news, had to react to it, had to change their approach to life and to the type of challenges they were taking on, and have absolutely thrived and flourished as a consequence. The person we're going to be talking to today was, a keen rock climber and a budding outdoor pursuits instructor looking forward to a life out in the mountains, who was told in 2011 that in fact he had a problem with his eyes that was going to lead him to lose his eyesight. Just an absolutely crushing blow at the time. But this guy managed to bounce back. He went and climbed El Capitan. He went over to Yosemite National Park and managed to climb El Cap, which is absolutely astonishing. And then through an incredible series of events, ended up as part of the Great Britain Paralympic Cycling team, and has since mopped up numerous gold medals and a world record along the way. He's going to be talking to us about all of that today. He's an absolutely lovely guy. You're really going to enjoy his stories. He's also going to be talking about a truly epic feat of endurance that he's got coming up, a world record that he's got his sights set on, which is just phenomenal. So listen in. We talk about that towards the end of the episode. I am absolutely 100% excited about this, and you should be as well. We are going to be talking today to Steve Bate, MBE. Good morning then, Steve Bate. Steve, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. It's lovely to have you with us this morning. Steve Bate, MBE, no less. I think the third MBE I've had on the show. Do I call you sir or lord or anything along those lines?
Just Steve's fine, mate. Just Steve's fine. Yeah.
I don't know. If I had those letters after my name, I might insist on something. I think a Duke, possibly something like
that. Yeah. I think I must admit, deep down, I really like to be a CBE, which is a commander of the British Empire. I think that's got some clout to it. I think just being a member is cool, but being a commander, that's definitely up a couple of levels, isn't it?
Commander Steve Bate. Yeah, absolutely. I'd be being much more formal coming into this interview right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for chatting with us today. It's I'm looking forward to this one. For the sake of the people that obviously they'll have just heard me do a bit of an introduction, so people know a little bit about you now. But it's your first time on the podcast, so I'd like to go a bit back further, into the origins of Steve Bate MBE. Were you always a sporty type? Were you always someone who went looking for the kind of challenges that you've taken on over the last few years?
I think I was very fortunate, obviously growing up in New Zealand. My family were really kind of outdoor people. We spent a lot of time when I was a kid camping over, kind of Christmas holidays, which is obviously summer in New Zealand. By a lake, lots of fishing. We were let loose into the woods, and you came back at dark, and there was, that was kind of, you made your own trouble, you stayed out of trouble, whatever. So I think I was pretty fortunate in the way that I grew up, and my parents gave me that kind of, me and my older brother, free rein to, to explore. And I think that's always stayed with me. I think in terms of a sporting context, I think being from New Zealand as a young lad, I think I started playing rugby at 4 years old, and was always, I always played team sports, I think, with rugby and cricket and indoor cricket. And although I always say I was never any good. Like my brother was, my older brother was always that kind of captain of the team, kind of best in his class, best in school. And I kind of rode his coattails. But, I never made a first team, never made the first 15 at school, never made the first 11 cricket. I was, I wasn't really a big kind of sporting achiever at a young age. I liked it and I tried hard, but I was, it was pretty clear by the time I was in my early teens, I was not going to be a full-time athlete. And, that wasn't really a career path that was going to be an option for me, really.
So what was day to day for Steve Bate prior to being Steve Bate MBE commander?
So I left school early. I wasn't exactly the brightest kid, purely because I used to sit there in class and stare out the window and rather be outside than in, I think. And I think all of my reports used to say that if Steve applied himself, he could be as good as his brother, which kind of made me rebel against that, obviously, because at that time I kind of hated my brother and the success, because everywhere I went I was Alan's little brother. But in a way it was, when I look back now, that was super inspiring and motivating, because he was such a high achiever. But yeah, so I left school and I did a carpentry apprenticeship. So I started banging the nails, and that's, I kind of qualified, did a 5-year apprenticeship, because I was kind of the guy that I worked for was pretty old school. That's what he did, so that's what I had to do. And just so left school and started building houses. And I wasn't really, I think I played cricket. I think I binned off rugby by my early teens, and I was kind of pretty focused on playing cricket. But again, never to a high level. I never played first 15 at the club, always second 15. And I was all right. I wouldn't say I was in it. I wasn't going to be a county cricket player or anything like that. But
you were playing for the joy of it.
Yeah. Like I loved it. I love playing part of that team, and just having a crack with the lads, which is always kind of a big motivator and that sort of thing, isn't it? And then I think at 22, I think was when I left New Zealand and came over to the UK, where my brother was, again kind of following in his footsteps. He'd come over for the 2-year kind of, I guess in the UK we call it a gap year, and was in London. And I was just about to build a house for myself in New Zealand. I'd seen a bit of land that I was going to buy, and I decided that I would go and see my brother for 6 weeks and see what kind of the Northern Hemisphere had to offer. And I'm still here, mate. I never went back.
You came here from Middle Earth and you decided to stay.
Yeah. I soon realised pretty quickly that actually, don't get me wrong, New Zealand's an amazing place. You know, it's a real kind of adventure playground. But nothing really happens in New Zealand. You know, they play rugby, they sail boats pretty well, and they play netball pretty well. But other than that, you know, not a lot happens. You know, everything that happens is in the Northern Hemisphere. And I think when I came up here and realised, you know, one thing that I took completely for granted was just history. You know, like you know, there's houses around where I live now in West Yorkshire that are older than New Zealand. You know, older than New Zealand, which is, you know, that's kind of mind blowing, isn't it? And so I think when I came up here, started going into Europe. You know, we went to crazy events like Running of the Bulls and Bear Fest and all these things. And, you know, and I just thought, you know what, there's something that's pretty extraordinary to be up this end of the world. So, so I've kind of made it my home for the last 20 odd years, 22 years, I think.
Amazing. Well, welcome. You know, it's good to have you.
Yeah, I actually think at the end of this month, I would have lived in the UK longer than actually I lived in New Zealand. So, I think that kind of almost justifies me being pretty much British now.
I hear you. I'm at 2/3 of my life now being in the north rather than the south of England, and I'm just about accepted as Northern now. So you should be getting close to being accepted as British at this point.
Exactly.
I mean, the MBE's got to count for something. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean that obviously, yeah, that helps.
Fantastic. Well, look, it's hard not to come to 2011. So where were you at that point? And for the benefit of the people who are listening, why do I keep coming to 2011? What happened there?
So the 14th of June 2011 was a bit pivotal for me, really. So at that point, once I moved to the UK, I kind of worked as a carpenter for 4 years. I'd moved to Scotland, so I was living in the north of Scotland, up by Inverness, and I had discovered rock climbing. So I'd left kind of team sports behind and discovered rock climbing, and that was a huge passion. You know, like I spent as much time as I could dangling off rock faces. And again, I wasn't great, but I had an incredible work ethic. I wanted to learn. I wanted to get better. So, you know, every weekend I was finding the driest rock to climb on, and that was a big part of moving to Scotland. Was, you know, that I think that in that country of Scotland, I've got more rock types than any other country in the world. You know, which is amazing as a climber. You know, the geology up there is phenomenal. And the other, probably the real reason is I really want to move to France, but I couldn't speak French, so you know I've been that one. I burned that one off pretty quickly.
You could just about handle Scottish though. So.
Yeah. I thought I could learn that a bit easier. They couldn't understand me, I couldn't understand them, so it was great. So I realised that actually I wasn't interested in building houses anymore. I really wanted to become a outdoor instructor and climb as much as I could. That was the thing. So I started volunteering for a charity that worked for disadvantaged young people. A good friend of mine was running at the time, and that led to me basically going back to doing an apprenticeship for a year, gaining outdoor qualifications and becoming an outdoor instructor, which was incredible. And over that process, I think I realized that being in the mountains was where I really wanted to be and where, you know, I wanted to spend all of my time. So then I decided that I was going to try and become an alpine guide and you know, take people into these amazing places around the world. So that was my, you know, for me at that point, coming up with a 5-year plan was kind of like pretty game changing, really, because I was never really cared that much about my future or investments or anything like that. And I thought, right, I'm going to invest all my time in climbing and mountaineering, and you know, I'm going to try and get on the guide scheme. So that's what I was doing. I got my MIA. I was working through these qualifications, you know, like in the normal kind of approach that you would. Yeah. Started doing the winter equivalent to that, the MIC. I think that they've now changed the names of those, but and then obviously June 2011, I went in for a eye examination, which we had agreed at the charity, because we drove vans so much, they were free in Scotland, so it makes sense to do that every year.
Yeah.
And I kind of came out of that being told that I shouldn't drive home, that I had really bad eyesight, and that in fact I shouldn't be driving anymore, which was a bit of a shock. And then kind of, I guess, about a month later, after seeing a couple of specialists, I had the diagnosis of retinitis pigmentosa, which is basically tunnel vision, which is this degenerative eye condition. So, it was a bit of a game changer, really. That dream of becoming that alpine guide all of a sudden went up in smoke. And
you'd just gone in for a routine eye check, just a tick of the box for the company that you were going to be working with.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like I knew over the last couple of years that my eyesight wasn't great. There was something going on. Like I can still see okay, but it's just what I could see was, I just thought, like walking out of the mountains with my best mate after a day's climbing, and we'd be walking out on a path, and there'd be one rock sitting in the middle of the path, and I'd trip over it where he'd walk around it. And at the beginning, I think he thought I was just taking the piss, like, that's pretty funny, good one. But then as this kind of happened more and more regularly, and as certainly in, during winter climbing, where it would get, the daylight hours would get really dark, and I'd really struggle in the dark. All of a sudden, I think he started to realize there was something going on as well. So, it was a shock, but not a massive surprise. There was something going on, because I just felt like I was getting more and more clumsy, which was really frustrating for me. In a way, looking back, it was almost like a relief that there was something wrong. It wasn't just me being clumsy and useless. It was actually, hey, you've got this issue. The downside is we don't have a cure, and they said the worst case scenario is you'll be blind in 4 years. So
wow,
that kind of hit me pretty hard as I was kind of, I think, in my early 30s at that point, fiercely independent, fiercely male, and all of a sudden the thought of having to, not being able to drive, losing this dream that I worked, probably 4 or 5 years for at that point to kind of, just build up to getting on the guide scheme. And, when probably if I reflect back now, I maybe never would have made it anyway. But, it was certainly everything I was kind of pinning my hopes on. And, all of a sudden all of that went, like I say, up in a single comment where it's like, I don't think you should be driving anymore, mate. Wow.
I mean, what a day.
It was, like I was, I can't remember at that point actually if I was engaged to Caroline, my wife, now or not, but that just the things that were running through my head, like for people listening, if we said, right, you can't drive anymore, just the impact that has on their lives. Like, we didn't have children, we still don't, but just it's a bit of a crushing blow. Like I thought, well, I can't do my job anymore, because obviously a big part of that was driving people into the outdoors, into these remote places. I didn't know what they would, whether they'd just be like, used to us, you got to go. I didn't know, it sounds stupid, but I didn't know whether Caroline was going to love me anymore, because all of a sudden I wasn't this kind of independent bloke. All of a sudden I was going to have to rely on people. You wonder what your friends think about you, as I think as men, we never want to show weakness. We don't want to be that person who's disabled, or we don't want to be the one who slows everyone down. It's never a fun place to be. So I just had this, that day, and certainly the months after that, I just had all these kind of weird emotions of just not being who I wanted to be. This wasn't fair. It was always, I was fit, I was healthy, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink excessively. I was an outdoor guy, and all of a sudden that looked like it was all going to be taken away. It was a lot to process.
I can only imagine how tough that was. And I mean, was there a period of time there where you weren't coping with it? Like, how long did it take you to get to a point where you were like, okay, I can make a new plan? there are still things I can do.
Yeah, I think it was probably, I don't know, probably like 4 to 6 months of just, like I stopped climbing, couldn't, like I wasn't interested. I thought, well, if I can't be the best I can be at it, what's the point in doing it? I just had a real defeatist attitude, and my whole mindset was focused on the things I couldn't do, which is a really bad place to be. Like I wouldn't say I had depression, but I was certainly pretty down on myself. Like at no point I got to the point where I thought I want to end this. I never got to that stage, thankfully, and I had an amazing support network around me, like my family. Caroline was incredible. My brother was great. When I phoned him and said, "Oh, listen, mate, I've just lost my driver's license. I'm going to go blind." There was a silence down the phone. He had moved back to New Zealand at this point. There was a silence down the phone, and I was just kind of thinking, "Oh God, this has hit him really hard." And he just came back with like, "Oh, don't worry, Steve, you're a shit driver anyway." It's just kind of like, what you'd expect from your older brother. They're so supportive. So there were things like that, and I think the pivotal moment was when I spoke to a good friend of mine, Karen Dark, and for those of you who know me and heard my story, you've heard this before, but I kind of went to speak to Karen because Karen's in a wheelchair, phenomenal woman. If you don't know Karen Dark, find out about her, Google her, she's phenomenal. She had a climbing accident at 19 or 20, fell off the sea cliffs in Aberdeen, broke her back, ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. And so I went to Karen because I figured she had gone through this kind of life-changing experience. And I kind of figured, in some random way that I was, that we had this thing in common. And straight away when I said to Karen, "Oh, I'm going to go blind, my, this adventurous lifestyle that we're going to live is over and done with." And, and she just said to me, "Get a grip of yourself, mate. You can't see, like you can race on the back of a tandem and come and ride with me for Paralympics GB." And, I was just like, "No, Karen, I can't do that. It's all over for me. It's all over." She goes, "Oh, come on, listen to yourself, dickhead." And I think at that point, it was kind of, I guess, it's kind of, pardon the pun, but it kind of opened my eyes to actually how am I living here? And it's negative. I'm focusing on everything that's negative, and actually, what can't I do? The only thing I can't do is drive, but nothing else has changed. And the minute that I realized that, all of a sudden I thought, well, hey, I can do anything. And then there was this real desire that if I was going to go blind in 4 years, I had to make the most of that 4 years. I had to make it so if I did go blind, I wasn't going to be stuck on a couch, and look back over that previous 4 years and go, well, all I was miserable and blamed, everyone else and myself that this has happened to me and poor me. I thought, what, I need to make these memories that in 4 years' time, if I go blind, I can look back and go, well, hell, that was an incredible 4 years. I made the most of the rest of my eyesight. And that's how I've chosen to kind of frame my life from that point, really. And that's kind of led into the things that have followed and will follow. While I've got the eyesight that I've got, even though it's getting worse, I've got to maximize the opportunity, because it's not always going to be there.
Well, I think we're about to come into what you've been doing over the last few years, and I think people are about to see that you absolutely have been maximizing what you've got. That's somebody else who I absolutely need to speak to there. Karen has been an absolute inspiration for you by the sounds of it. And
yeah, I mean, to be fair, she kind of, like, I've known Karen for probably, I don't know, maybe 15 years now. Yeah, and I met her not long after I moved to Scotland, and she's always been incredible. Like, I think when I met her, she had just hand skied across the Greenland ice cap, wow, with the team, and it's just like, or sit skied, across the Greenland ice cap, and you just think like, wow, that's mental, and just the attitude, her attitude to life and living with paralysis is like, you can't help not being super inspired and be like, wow, that's, she's kicking ass. If she can kick ass, I can kick ass, But yeah, she's phenomenal character.
Incredible. And was she partly the catalyst that led you onto El Capitan?
I think not. I don't think Karen was kind of at her time. She was her partner was Andy Kirkpatrick, who's obviously a famous, one of British, probably most famous alpinists, and certainly he's a bit of a legend when it comes to El Cap. He's probably climbed the thing 30 odd times, but
wow.
It was an off the kind of cuff comment he made when we caught up one day, and he just said, "Oh, you should, even if you go blind, you should go and climb El Cap." This Hans Florin guided this guy, what's his name, Eric Wymuir, who's quite a famous guy. He's first blind guy to walk up Everest, kind of climb El Cap, and he said, "Oh yeah, so Hans Florin's guided Eric up, so yeah, you can still climb El Cap, but you really should solo it before you lose your sight." And as a climber, like El Cap's the holy grail. Everyone wants to go and climb El Cap. It's incredible, but it's a pretty daunting prospect, which is why most people make excuses not to go and climb it.
I'd just like to give some scale here to anyone who's listening to El Cap and isn't necessarily sure what El Capitan is. We're talking over 3,000 feet of rock face, is that right? And Yosemite National Park.
Yeah, in California. So to give people a concept, I guess most people listening to this have probably seen the Eiffel Tower, maybe been up the Eiffel Tower.
I'd say so.
So it's 3 times the height of the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
It's same with the London Shard, same thing. The Shard, 3 times the height of that. So it's a significant rock face. Yeah. So I think it was Andy who kind of planted that seed about not only climbing it but soloing it, and he was at that point he was the man when it came to soloing, and with a rope, protected soloing. He'd spent all sorts of long days on El Cap, by himself, phenomenal, again, super inspiring. And so I think at that point I had nothing going on, and I thought, well, hey, that's going to give me this really good thing to focus on. And what I've realized over the years is actually, if I've got a goal and I'm working towards something, I'm super motivated. But when those goals fade away, I'm kind of just a lazy punk like everyone else. It's just like I really lose my direction and who I am and what I want to do. And when I get these big targets, it's kind of like, right, all in, game on. I'm really single-minded, really focused, and that's probably part of the reason why I've achieved what I have, because it's not through talent, it's just through a skill set of learning about something, investing everything in it, and committing to it 100%.
Well, it seems to have worked out for you. El Capitan obviously ended in a success. You got up there. Was it 6 days that I read to climb that rock face? That's an enormous amount of work. Yeah,
it's really funny when people when people say that, or find out that you've climbed El Cap solo, and obviously the Alex Honnold film Free Solos made it kind of mainstream. Everyone's kind of seen that film and everyone's blown away with that. Like, I didn't do it that way. Like I climbed with a rope, with a portaledge, old school, hauling all my stuff. Like, I think it took Alex less time to climb El Cap than it took me to climb the first pitch of 16. So I'm in no way comparing myself to Alex Honnold. The guys are phenomenal. I'm just some punter who turned up, who struggled my way up there, and that's really, I was so close to not starting. I'd phone Carol and said, listen, I think I'm going to kill myself. Like, I even thought the day that I went to start, I was thinking about breaking my ankle as an excuse just to not do it. Like, I was not in a good place when I started walking up to it anyway. Once I pulled onto the rock and stuff, I was going to the top. It's like I say, I'm no super talent, I'm no phenomenal climber. Like, I'm an average climber in the UK. I'm not some superstar, not by any means. It's just probably a stubbornness, I think, that once I set my mind to something, I really want to achieve it.
Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt. Just here to remind you that this episode was brought to you by Resilient Nutrition, and you can find their full range of elite long-range fuels exclusively on the BTU store now. The elite long-range fuels are a series of delicious nut butter products with micronutrients and supplements designed to give you exactly what you need when you need it. They're delicious, they're great for fueling your whatever your adventure is, and you can find them on the BTU store and nowhere else right now. store.beyondtheultimate.co.uk. That's store.beyondtheultimate.co.uk. Okay, let's get back to the podcast. So how did this stubbornness get you onto the Olympic team then? How did we get there? Because we're now a climber. We've done El Capitan. We've done this amazing thing. How are you then an Olympic cyclist? What happened next? Because you have not taken a very direct sort of career trajectory here.
No. So at this point, I was probably 36, I think. And I think just before El Cap, Karen's words kind of came back to me where she said, you could race on the back of a tandem. And at that point, climbing wasn't in the Olympics or Paralympics. And so there was kind of, I was like, oh, couldn't I? I don't know, it's certainly something new. And then right before I went out to WellCap, it just worked out that British Cycling were doing a talent ID day in Glasgow. So I went down to that, and Karen said to me, when I phoned her the night before and said, listen, I'm in Glasgow, I'm doing this talent ID day. She was like, good. They're only looking at two things. And that's what you have to realize. One of them is that you're kind of athletic, and you're not like some sort of, kind of 25 stone, monster that they're going to have to do a load of work, that like you look athletic. So you've ticked that box when you walk through the door. The other one's your power production. That's all they're interested in. How much power can you produce on the bike? So she said something like, if you can walk out of there, you haven't done yourself justice. Like, you want to ride your legs, you bury yourself, mate. You know the score. So I did that. I mean, I wasn't, again, I don't think those coaches that day looked at me and went, here's the next prodigy. I think they saw a determination, hard work. And somebody who was organized, like I was the first one to turn up. I had my shoes, the pedals, and they said, we can't fit them on these stationary bikes. I said, here's a pedal spanner, and they're like, great, we'll swap over. So, I was just super organized, on time, and showed a willingness to kind of learn and try, and try really hard. And then they said, we'll get back to you in a week. And of course, in a week, I didn't hear anything. So I was like, didn't come to anything. Not bothered. I'm going to LCAP, next week. It's fine. And then when I came back from LCAP, I emailed the manager because I said to them, listen, I'm going away for a month. I'll get in contact when I get back, thinking, basically I've been them off. They're not going to be interested. And then when I came back from LCAP, they said, it'd be good to have a look at you again. We've got a training camp, the development training camp, which we'd like to have you as a guest on in 3 weeks' time. We're going to be in Wales for a week. Can you come down to that? And of course, I was still working at this time, so I just had a month off work, poncing around in California, and then had to go back in and say, hey, listen, guys, there's this opportunity to go, do a week with British Cycling. Is what the chance I can get the time off for that? And they were, the charity I worked for up at Murray were fantastic and said, yeah, of course you got to go. So I went down to the kind of week with the development squad and met some incredible guys who are still on the team and my mates now. Had a great week and they just sort of said, well, there's potential. But I think the thing that was the kind of game changer for them is what I didn't realise, but everyone kind of at British Cycling and knew that I'd climbed El Cap. So that had gone round the office and just like, this new kind of stoker guy we're looking at on the back, this is what he's just done. And I think there was a connection where they thought, if he's mad enough to do that, he's probably mad enough to race on the back of a tandem. So so kind of 4 months later, that was the beginning of must have been January 2014. I was brought onto the program and introduced to Adam Duggleby, who's my pilot, who we've ridden together ever since. So it was a bit of a again, not kind of really in the game plan. But I think after sitting on the top of LCAP, having just achieved that in 6 days, I guess I kind of understood my potential. I realized that actually it's just that simple thing. If you focus everything you can on a goal you want to achieve, and work your ass off, that just proved to me it was achievable. And I think then going to, then all of a sudden the Paralympics comes on the radar. And, at that point I just thought, well, I'm 36 years old. Like, there's no way I'm going to make it as a full-time athlete now. Like, people have retired from a career of cycling at 36. It's not possible. But there was this boyhood kind of, this kid inside me going, but isn't it worth a try? Isn't it worth a shot? Because if you take this recipe you've just learned from LCAP and apply it to cycling, and the difference there was I had the whole support of British Cycling. I wasn't doing this on my own, emailing Andy, asking him how to tie into certain things or, how to learn to rope solo. I was going to this machine that churns out medals to go, hey, listen, do as we say and you'll get a medal. And that's kind of just how it happened. I just committed to it 100%. Adam committed to it 100%. And 2.5 years later, we're stood on top of a Paralympic podium, having just broken a pursuit world record and winning a gold medal. So it's kind of like, it doesn't seem real, if I'm honest. It just doesn't seem like that's what happened. And then of course you come back from that. We went straight to Patagonia because after 2.5 years of being in a pressure cooker, I was just like, I need to escape. So Karen, who also won gold medal at that games, which was awesome. We went with another guy off the team, and my wife Caroline went to Patagonia for kind of 5 weeks or something, just to like decompress from all of that and get wild again. And then of course, while we're out there, I get an email from, I think Caroline actually looked at her emails, and my mum had messaged her saying, I've just been round at one of the guys who went to Rio's houses with their parents, and he's just got an MBE, just been sent a letter saying, would you like an MBE in the New Year's honours list? And so my mum was super excited, saying, oh my God.
Get him to check his email.
And of course we were away. So I was just like, oh yeah, I'll look at it when I get back. It's like, oh no, it's got to reply by a certain time. So she was freaking out that all of a sudden I was going to miss this opportunity of getting this MBE. So, but yeah, all of a sudden then you just, and to be honest, I thought about, not accepting it, because it was services to cycling. And I thought, Christ, I've just, for 2.5 years of my life, I've got into cycling, but I would, it just felt, I know people have worked in the charity sector for their lives and have done extraordinary things and haven't had that, kind of, level of accolade, I suppose, to show what they've done made a big impact in their communities and countries in some cases. And I'd just ridden a bike round in circles really fast, and all of a sudden you're getting this accolade, and I kind of thought, well, I don't deserve this. There's far better people out there that deserve this. And it's it's a funny thing to get your head around, that you've been given this accolade, but all I've done is my job. Yeah. And I've always, that's what I'm paid to do. I'm paid by, UK Sport to in the lottery funding to win gold medals. So all I've done is done my job, and I'm getting this incredible accolade. And you think, well, Christ, do I really want this? Obviously it's extremely flattering. And I guess in some ways I got kind of talked into it by the people around me, just saying, you're an idiot. If you don't accept this, you're an idiot. Take it, grab it with both hands, because it's something that, not many people will ever get. Not that, many people want them, but, it's a recognition of what you've done. And I think the thing that changed it for me was someone said to me, oh, you'll never know how many people you've inspired. And I don't, it's not like there's a counter on an app on your phone going, yep, there's another one you've inspired today.
One more person just learnt my story.
Exactly, yeah. So it's kind of a funny thing,
I can understand the sort of level of imposter syndrome that would have you standing there going, I've only been in this sport for a couple of years, but what you'd done in that time, that total dedication of your life to it, and at the end of that process, gold medal, world record. I mean, if that's not deserving of an MBE, I'm not entirely sure what is.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I say, it's like that. I think that period if relief, I think, is the games. Everyone says, "Oh, what's it like to win a gold medal?" It's just relief. You know, it really is. Like the kind of high of it comes later, once it kind of, you know, once it sinks in what Adam and I achieved. But at the time, you're just thankful you've delivered this performance, because, you know, we're just the dudes on the bike. You know, there's like 40 staff that have all invested the same amount of their lives into us going fast. So it's just kind of like, you're just glad you pulled it off, like for them, really. It's, it's pretty...
And you talked about a sort of 2.5 year process there in a pressure cooker, such so that you had to go off to Patagonia for 5 weeks to calm down afterwards. Well, yeah, it wouldn't take much of an excuse to get me over there either, but you had a good one. I mean, there's only so much detail you can give in a little podcast like this, but what was that 2.5 years like? I'm trying to build up a picture in my head of what the work schedule for someone who's going for a gold medal is like. What did your life become in that time?
At the start, it's all brand new. So you're making, big gains in your performances. I mean, Adam was already an elite cyclist in his own right. As he was winning races. He had already been a national champion on the track. So, this guy's a really high caliber rider, and here I am, a climber, jumps on the back with him. And all of a sudden I've got this incredibly high standard that Adam's setting, not only himself, but me as well, to kind of achieve. So, I was just like, well, again, when there's two of you on a bike, you don't want to be the worst one. You don't want to be the weakest link. So I just buried myself completely, and it was fun. It wasn't, it didn't feel like work. Christ, I'd gone from building houses to working a 9 to 5 and weekends in an outdoor charity. All of a sudden, all I was doing was riding my bike. And I think the weirdest thing was when I started, I thought I was going to be like, 30 hours a week on my bike and in the gym and, having to do all this stuff. And what you realize very quickly when you're a professional athlete, you're kind of being paid to recover. Obviously the hours get you do more hours, you build up to more hours on the bike. But the reality is, recovery is where the magic happens. And that's, I learned pretty quickly, because I was just like, I need to do everything because I need to get better. And the coach was like, whoa, hang on. Calm down, lad. Like your body needs to adapt, and to adapt, it needs to recover and rebuild and grow. So, it wasn't until like we didn't know until the June of 2016, we'd been selected. So everything up until then, we started creeping onto podiums at World Cup level. We'd never got anywhere in World Championships. And I think in 2015 we won our first World Cup time trial. And I think at that point, it became a reality that actually we've got a genuine chance of making this Paralympic team. Because at that point we were surrounded by incredible athletes, and like Jodie Cundy and Neil Faki and Sarah Story, and you just look at these people who have spent their lives in the sport and dominated it, and here you are, some sort of bum climber, on the back of a bike with some professional guy in front of you, and you're kind of not making it up as you go along, but you're just kind of in it for the ride kind of thing. And I think as soon as we won that gold medal in that time trial, you realize you've got potential, and all of a sudden it like everything went up a gear. And then coming into 2016, I was like, right, I'm not drinking this year at all to the games. I'm not going to eat, shit food. I'm going to really kind of invest everything. And I remember, I think about 6 months before the games, it was looking pretty good. We'd had some of our best results. Everyone else in the team who was kind of like we were we going to go, weren't we going to go, we were kind of doing better than everyone else. So it was like, oh, okay, yeah, we've got more results than this guy, but you never know. British Cycling really keep you on a knife edge in terms of, to get the best out of you. Really, it's not.
Yeah, I bet they want to squeeze every drop out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we went and sat into like a team talk, I think, and Chris Hoy came in and sort of said, 6 months before the games, it was very easy for me. I everything I did, I asked myself one question, and that was, is this going to make me faster? Yes or no? If it's yes, I did it. If it's no, I didn't do it. And that was a really key ingredient for me, because then it made it dead easy. Everything I did, I missed weddings of friends. I missed parties and, people going to the booze on a Friday. And Caroline was incredibly understanding, because I was just like, I can't go. Like me getting a bad night's sleep, I'm not going to recover. Me drinking, staying up all night, speaking to friends. We'd turned friends away who'd come to the house because their children had a cold. It's like, no, can't deal with that. I can't be here. You can come in, but I got to go. That's how serious we were. We were taking it. And then I think once you get selected in that June, then I'd gone from, the whole dream was to become a Paralympian. Like, I wasn't even really focused on winning a gold medal. It was just to be a Paralympian. That would be awesome. To go to a games, have that experience, be awesome. And then all of a sudden you get announced in that team, and straight away like that, it was like, I have to win a gold medal, and again, it just went up another gear. The focus became now, and I pretty much became a recluse. You're living, breathing, eating, riding your bike and training, and you're not interested in anything else, that is outside of that. And, I was very, I guess, very fortunate. Like Caroline and my friends allowed that to happen. They didn't go, hey, you're being a dick. You're not talking to us anymore. What's this about? So yeah, again, when you win, you're kind of paying all that back, I think. It's a bit emotional speaking about it, really. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I bet it's absolutely huge, and it's wonderful that you had that support around you while you gave yourself to that in the way that you did. So, you talk about a moment of relief. Can you put us there when the first gold? How on earth did that feel?
Yeah, relief.
Like, where were you?
Yeah, well, I think just to take it back, so just before the games, we go into what's called a holding camp.
Yeah.
So for 2 weeks beforehand, we go to basically a camp, which is just the games team, and that is kind of a prep thing. There's kind of media training. You're still obviously training your ass off, but everything's starting to kind of like, right, all the hard work's done at that point. Now we're trying to maintain it and not get ill is the key ingredient there. You just like, so you're removed away from the public, you're in this little bubble of this holding camp. And during that holding camp, I think it was probably 3 or 4 days before we flew to Rio. You do a full race day prep on the track. So we rode the pursuit, the individual pursuit, 4K pursuit, 16 laps of the track from a standing start. And so we ran through our race day. So it's the same time as what you're expected to go off. So, you can get up when you need to, eat what you think you're going to eat, go through all the motions, get on the bike and put in this performance. Full gas. You're in the games kit for the first time, the skin suits, the fast wheels, all the stuff that you've been dreaming about for ages, which is the absolute icing on the cake. And so we got up, and that day that we were due to do our race day prep was at Newport Velodrome. And that was the day that they allowed the public to come in, which was the only day during that time they could come in. So, there was probably, it's not a very big grandstand, but probably 200 people maybe. And, there's someone announcing your name, but there's no timings up on boards or anything like that. All that's kept really quiet. And so our names got called up. And, of course, Adam and I, we've warmed up, we've got on the bike and we ride. And I knew it went well, but I didn't know how well because, of course, we couldn't see splits or anything like that. And I kind of, as we were rolling around after we'd finished, I kind of just, went, to my coach, and he just gave me a thumbs up, and I thought, oh, that's good. That's gone well then, decent, happy with that. And by the time we rolled into the pits, everyone was kind of buzzing. There was definitely a good vibe going on. And we'd just broken the world record at that point. So, in a training camp, like in a training situation, we'd just broken the world record by, I think, by 3 seconds. So then...
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So then it's kind of like, oh, right, okay, this is actually, this could happen. You know, if we get this right on the day, this could really happen. And obviously pursuing, you never know how fast anyone, you know, is gone either, you know, in other countries, but we knew we were in a good place, the best we'd ever gone. And I remember the head coach, John Norfolk, coming over and said, don't tell anyone. This goes nowhere. Don't put this on social media. No one knows about this. And I messaged Caroline, my wife, and said, oh my God. You know, like, so that was the first ride. And then because in a pursuit, you do a qualifier and then the 2 fastest bike race off for the gold medal. So we were due to do a second ride in the afternoon. And so we rode back to the hotel we were staying in, and riding back, one of our carers, a great bloke named Eamon Dean, I was obviously, you know, pretty excited, probably started running my mouth about how we're going to smash everyone. And he just rode up to me and said, excuse my French here, for anyone who's but he just rode up to me and said, you haven't fucking won anything yet, mate. And it just like, it was perfect. It just brought me back down to the level I needed to be. Just like, he was absolutely right. We hadn't won anything. We'd done something somewhere, but it wasn't where we needed to do it. So yeah, just that kind of reset me to think, right, you know, like I've still got a week and a half before we race. I can still work my ass off. So yeah, on that day, obviously you show up to the track and you're thinking, right, you know we can go fast. And we were the last heat to go off against the current world champion, Kieran Modra, who's unfortunately passed away, but he was an absolute legend in the sport. And I always wanted to be that. I guess the thing is at the games is you're on the biggest stage in the world, and we were against the best guy in the world at that time. You know, so the stage was like, mate, this is it. If you want to test yourself, perfect. You know, if you want to be a big game performer, this is your time. So we got to watch everyone else go in the heats before us, and you're just watching these times. And I knew the Paralympic record, which was 4:17 from London, was going to get broken before we got a chance. And I knew the world record was probably going to get broken before we got up as well. So in my mind, like psychologically, I was like, right, that's going to happen and that's fine. But if that happens, it means we're going to go fast as well. And I know we're going to go faster than 4:09, what we rode in the holding camp. And I remember the first Dutch bike that came up, they rode for about a 4:12 or 4:14. You know, and of course the crowd erupts, new Paralympic record, and they're punching the sky. And I just remember thinking, good luck, boys. Enjoy this moment because it ain't lasting long. You know, and it wasn't arrogance. It was just this confidence that I knew would go well. And then the second Dutch bike, who we ended up racing in the final, went 4:09. And literally I turned around to Adam, who was warming up next to me, and said, good, someone's come to play. This is good, you know. And then it was just a case of we're going to get in the medals. It was just a case of how fast Kieran was going to go. And, you know, I guess fortunately for us, he was on a bad day. And, you know, so we rode 4:08, broke the world record that the Dutch had just broken, and qualified fastest to go into the gold medal ride-off. And for me at that point, it was kind of like, right, job done, broken a world record.
Beating a world champion.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I don't, you know, even if we lose the final, we're going to get silver. You know, so I knew we had a medal, and I thought, perfect, I don't really care. You know, like, excellent, we've got a world record and we're going to get a silver medal at worst. Like, winning, you know, it's great. So we rode back to the hotel or the games village, and riding back, it was just, you know, I remember warming up and my legs felt amazing, which is pretty rare because normally in training they feel terrible. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, because I said, you know, like I was sort of saying, I don't really care. You know, we've got a medal. Awesome. You know, great. You know, 2.5 years of work and we've got this medal, which I never thought was going to be something. And then something in my mind clicked when I was sitting in those chairs while we were waiting to go up for the final race. It's like, mate, you need to care about this because this is the closest you're ever going to get to a gold medal. You know, this matters. This really bloody matters. And yeah, and obviously we got up and we bet the Dutch bike by, you know, pretty much riding I think we're half a second off our world record. So it was, you know, it was amazing. It was like, in terms of executing a race plan, it couldn't have gone better. You know, it was like everything was nailed on perfect. And like I say, it was just relief. You know, it really was. But it set us up to then go into the time trial super relaxed because we had a medal. And, you know, we rode terribly in that and we managed to win somehow. So, so you got 2 races, 2 gold
How
medals.
terribly can you have rowed and still come out with the gold? Really?
It's like, it's by far not our best performance in time trialing, but, we're obviously best of a bad bunch on that day. And then, 2 days later for the last day of the games, we're in a road race. And at that point I was pretty burnt out. I was starting to feel the effects of kind of the last 6 months, and certainly the 3 weeks of building up to this. And, road racing's never been our strongest point. And, we were in the lead group, got dropped on the last climb, and we knew that there were 3 bikes ahead of us, and we knew that we'd looked at the terrain and thought it's rolling. That kind of suits us. The climb didn't, but the terrain suited us, so we worked our asses off and managed to catch the Spanish bike about probably maybe just over a kilometre from the finish line, and. And I knew at that point, as soon as we caught them, I knew we were going to win our 3rd medal, which was going to be bronze. But, it was pretty great way to finish off, really. 3 races, 3 medals. It's just unbelievable.
Incredible. And thanks. It's amazing hearing you talk about it. It really sort of put us there. What an incredible moment. And what vindication of 2.5 years of putting your entire life into that.
It's I spent a year training for LCAP and full on invested in that, and it's not easy. It's not talent, and it's not easy. It's a massive part of that is like I said, the support we had. Just kind of feeling incredibly fortunate.
I think you've made a lot of your own good fortune here. I really do. It is a shame to move on from the Paralympics because this is absolutely fantastic. But obviously you do win medals for a living, which is absolutely incredible. But there's another big challenge coming up for you, isn't there? And I really want to talk about this because this sounds like it's going to be absolutely incredible. So without giving away too much.
Well, to the next big thing coming up is obviously the games in 4 months' time in Tokyo.
Well, yeah.
So I've got that to what expectations to live up to, which is going to be interesting. So the pressure's kind of you're certainly feeling the effects now. It was funny. I was talking to one of the younger guys on the squad the other day, and sort of saying, at the moment in your career, he's at a point where he's learning his craft, and people just are, expecting him, the team are just expecting him to get better and grow as time goes on. And I said, wait until you get the expectation. Once you start winning medals, and then there's just this expectation every time you get on the bike, you're expected to win. And it's a very different place to be. And he wants to be in that place, obviously, because he wants to be winning medals. But, it's kind of taking him a step back and going, just enjoy this process, mate. Because, in a couple of years' time, when you start dominating, all of a sudden that comes with a whole nother pressure, which, obviously no one ever wants to disappoint their team and their teammates and stuff like that. But, it's certainly, going into this games far more experienced as a rider, and certainly being, I'm the oldest guy on the British cycling team now. So there comes like a kind of a hat that you wear that, people look to you if, kind of support and things, who have been on the program longer than you. And I guess it's just through life experience and what I've achieved in the time I've been there. People kind of, I guess it's very humbling, value your opinion, which is lovely. But you kind of think, God, you guys have been here longer than me. I should be asking you these questions, not the other way around. But but anyway, so I've got to get through this games, which will be amazing. It's obviously
sorry, I kind of glossed over Tokyo there because I was. So that's been. It was interesting because I came very close to retiring, to be honest, when it was delayed last year. I've kind of had this next project we'll talk about kind of in the pipeline for a couple of years. So, it's just like, if the game's delayed, that, is that going to put that in jeopardy? And I'm 44 this year, and the desire to put myself through the ringer every day is kind of starting to fade, if I'm honest. The commitment, that I've shared kind of takes away from other aspects of your life. And I kind of, in many ways, I want that
aspect of my life back, to do adventures and mess around and, meet mates at the pub and have a beer without feeling guilty about it. And so I think I've definitely, I think the big kind of omen with this was my 44th birthday is on the opening ceremony of Tokyo.
So how could you not?
and I took that as a really positive omen that actually if Tokyo are going to throw me a party, I best turn up.
Yeah.
So that kind of made me reinvest and think it's just another year. It's not going to be an easy year, but it's another year, and you get motivated. You can do it. Finish what you started, kind of thing. However, after that, very exciting is a Guinness World Record challenge that I have set my sights on, which is racing my bike solo from Cairo to Cape Town. So length of Africa, going after Mr. Mark Beaumont's Guinness World Record, which is, gets me pretty excited just talking about it.
Yeah, I can see you've got a wry grin on your face as soon as you've started talking about this one. I mean, should we talk through some of the maths just quickly? What sort of distance are we talking about, and what sort of daily distance are we talking about here?
Yeah, so this is actually the first time I've really spoken about this in public. I have been being a busy beaver trying to get this funded for the last year through Mark's help, who's been absolutely incredible. But so the rough numbers are 6,500 miles.
Wow.
From Cairo to Cape Town, through 8 countries, 7 border crossings, and I am aiming to do that in 25 days. So that is around about 260 miles a day for 25 days.
Wow, that is astonishing.
Yeah, so the basic plan is to use Mark's record of when he raced around the world in under 80 days.
Mm-hmm.
So he was trying to average 240 miles a day for 16 hours a day. So I rode 4 4-hour blocks, very short break in between, fully supported, and he did that for 79 days. Phenomenal. So I plan to take that style, if I can get the funding, and there's a big if I can get the funding at the moment, take that style to Africa and try and break his record, which currently stands at 42 days. I think 41 days, 10 hours and 22 minutes.
So that's a hell of a dent you're looking to put in that record then.
Yeah. I figured if I was going to go after it, it wasn't going to be to shave a few hours off it. I'd really like to potentially put it out of reach for quite a long time. But again, Mark's been pivotal in this kind of these big endurance racing challenges around the world, and his Africa thing, he's ridden Americas and stuff. So this is becoming more and more mainstream, and I think we're going to see more and more people taking on these big challenges, but in a supported way. When Mark did Africa, he was unsupported.
Okay.
So this will be a very different record. This isn't like for like. This is very different. The Guinness World Record, they don't stipulate between supported and unsupported record attempts, because it's too much of a grey area where you draw the line. Is unsupported completely unsupported, not taking your phone with you, sorting everything out as you go, or Mark generally, when he raced around the world and raced down Africa, he had his mum, who was his kind of manager at home, who pulled strings when he needed stuff delivered, could get it dropped off further down the line, and there's an argument, well, is that fully self-supported if you've got support from the outside world? So it just becomes a huge kind of grey area and an argument most of the time, which I'm not really interested in. All I'm really interested in is seeing again, what I can do. I think with border crossings, that many border crossings and certainly hostile areas, it's going to make that 25-day kind of target a real challenge.
Yeah.
I've been told the Ethiopian Kenyan border, they can, with that can be quite hostile, so they can just shut that for 48 hours at a drop of a hat, and that's it. There's no kind of like, oh yeah, we'll let you through because you're going for a world attempt. I'll be stuck there for 48 hours.
Wow.
So like 25 days is kind of best case scenario. That's allowing an extra amount of time for if we get stuck, at borders. Well, best case scenario, we a couple of hours and you're through a border. If we can hit all of those in a dream run, it'll work great. But the reality is, I think probably if I can go sub 30, I'll be pretty stoked on that. With weighing up, that many border crossings and yeah. I mean, it's about, I think there's over 50,000 meters of ascent as well. So it's northern Ethiopia, as beautiful as it is really mountainous. It's when I started looking at the route, and Mark said to me, "Oh, check out Ethiopia, mate. You'll love that." And yeah, it looks savage. It looks absolutely savage.
It's surprisingly lumpy country.
Yeah. So I think there's certainly days where I'm not going to achieve that target. And like Mark says, it's an average. So if you're trying to ride 250 miles each day, you'll never achieve that as an average. There'll be days where I'll probably strike significantly under, but hopefully there'll be those days on those long straight roads where with a tailwind that I'll get a few miles on the bank. So yeah, it's super exciting, pretty intimidating. So yeah, the last kind of 2 years I've been stretching myself by doing more mad things on my bike in terms of distance wise and stuff. So yeah, I think I'm in a pretty good place to, once I get out of these games, to kind of then retune the engine slightly from kind of racing at that kind of high intensity to winding that dial back to being a bit more sat in the saddle, churning it out for minimum 16 hours a day. Yeah.
Incredible. And when is it you're sort of aiming to take on this challenge? Wow, as soon as that. Fantastic.
So it'll be a pretty quick turnaround after the games. After Rio, I kind of took 4 months off the bike and partied like I hadn't for 2.5 years, and got pretty fat, if I'm honest. Like, I wasn't really an athlete at all by the end of that 4 months. Whereas this time, actually, it's going to be quite a long haul, because I'll come back. I'll probably enjoy a couple of weeks off the bike, and then, I think a lot of the great kind of homecoming parades and things like that, I'll probably forego this time, and to focus on, again, that recipe of committing 100% and going after it. It's a proven record so far, so I don't think there's any need to change that. It's just a case of getting back in that mindset for a few months and cracking on really to hopefully have success.
Amazing. I thoroughly look forward to bugging you and trying to get you to appear on the podcast again after you've completed that challenge. I think it'd be absolutely ace to speak to you again. And I'll be looking out for the Paralympic results after Tokyo as well, because that's just the best of luck, man. No worries. And thank you for spending the time with us today. It's been a genuine pleasure to talk to you, Steve.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, no, it's been great. It's always nice to share a journey, and hopefully, that's gets people motivated to do stuff.
I think after this, you'll be able to add quite a few more names to the list of people who've been inspired by what you've done, Steve. Genuinely, that's
like it's a really interesting thing. The term of inspiration, and there was a can't remember that one of the guys who went to Rio who wrote a blog about inspiration afterwards. I think he was maybe a wheelchair basketball player or a bocce player. I can't remember, but he basically said is, as an inspirational speaker, if you listen to me speak and you're inspired and do nothing, then you've wasted that inspiration. And he just said, me coming and speaking is a waste of time. If you think about it and think, oh, that's really good, I'm really motivated, but then do nothing with it. And I kind of got right on board with that, because it's easy to be inspired. It's easy to sit there and listen to a podcast or watch people and go, oh, that's incredible. The hard thing is getting out your door and using that inspiration. And I always say to people, like, hey, if I've inspired you, don't tell me what you've done with it. drop me a message or, an email or whatever, contact me through my website and say, hey, I've just gone and done this because I heard your podcast or I watched your film, or, that's when I see the value. That's when it feels really good. Just having people go, oh, you're really inspirational. I was like, oh yeah, cheers for that. Yeah, that's lovely. But what you're doing with that inspiration, wrap it up, take it home and do something with it, and then email me and tell me, because I'll be stoked. I'll reply. I love it when people contact me and say, hey, I went and rode on my bike for 20 miles today because I listened to your podcast and I just had to get out. And that's awesome. You don't have to go and break world records or win medals. Just do something, take the inspiration and, jump on your bike or go for a run or paddle or whatever it is you do, use it while it's there and it's kind of flowing through your veins, because it disappears pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. Quite so. And you know what, Steve? Have you got a website we can send people to so they can send you the results of their inspiration and maybe learn a little bit more about your challenges?
Yeah, so my website is just stevebatembe.com. That's BATE. And to be honest, the most thing I'm active on is Instagram, which again is the same handle, Steve Bate MBE. So yeah, drop us a message and I'm sure after this podcast, there'll be thousands of people messaging me. So I'll get back to you all. I promise. Just it might take a couple of days.
Yeah. So no pressure if you're listening to this, but Steve is expecting to hear from you. Oh, awesome. Well, just once again, thanks very much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure this morning, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
Right on. Cheers. All the best.
And you.